All of you who have to leave, we are sorry to leave you, but to lose you, but do leave as quickly and as quietly as you can, because, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure now to introduce this year's hot seat guest. And if I just begin by giving you a few stats and figures, you'll appreciate that this particular hotel executive is on top of a business which is growing at an unbelievable rate. We're talking about a hotel group which now boasts more than 35,000 employees. It's in 100 and more countries. It has 93,000 and more beds already under its wing, but it is taking on another almost 10,000 or has done in the last year, so it's expanding exponentially, more than 10% in the last year in terms of its bedroom capacity. The group is known as Residor. Some of you may know its brands, including Radisson Blu, Park Inn, some others as well. And it is my pleasure to invite to the stage the current Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Residor Hotel Group. That is Mr. Wolfgang Neumann. Wolfgang, if you would take to the stage. It's very nice to see you. Thanks for being here, Wolfgang.
Great pleasure.
I don't know if you ever see the Hard Talk show on BBC World News, but...
Lived 6 years in London and followed many of your interviews.
Great. Well, in that case, why are you here? No, I'm kidding.
I asked myself this question also.
No. I think before we get to maybe some of the tougher questions, we do need, for those who don't follow the global hotel business particularly closely, we need to hear just how big your group has become and how ambitious you are to grow even further. Where are you at and where do you hope to go?
We are one of the fastest growing hotel companies, as you mentioned. We operate currently 320 hotels, have 100 in the pipeline. Europe, Africa, Middle East is our territory. Operate our hotels under Radisson Blu, Park Inn, Missoni and Regent are the other two hotels. Very much growing in the emerging markets. Emerging markets to us is Africa, Middle East, and Russia, CIS.
So where is obviously you're all over, but where is your prime focus right now? I mean, emerging markets covers a huge expanse of the globe, but where would you say you're most excited right now?
Most excited probably on the African continent.
Yeah?
Yeah. And also in Russia. These are the two areas where they are really in the emerging markets seeing a lot of traction and growth.
All right, well it seems to me both those areas, but let's focus particularly on Africa, do raise a huge number of sustainability issues, and you and your company pride yourselves, I think it's fair to say, in being, in the Premier League of sustainable travel and tourism businesses. You've got this Think Planet initiative, which Fiona mentioned in her introductory remarks. Try and persuade me that this is more than just a classic piece of corporate PR to tell your consumers and clients that you're doing the right thing.
Persuading you, Stephen, okay. First of all, Residor has Scandinavian roots. We were founded 50 years ago in Denmark, and the whole commitment to responsible business is actually in our DNA. We have been a leading hotel corporation committed to responsible business throughout our growth. When we had 20 hotels out in Scandinavia to our 420 now, it hasn't changed. It was very much part of our culture.
Yeah, but you can't get away with saying we're Scandinavian, therefore automatically we're good guys.
I'm not. I'm only saying we have learned over the years to know what the benefits are, and ultimately any sustainable initiative is about people. It's not about me. Yes, I have to commit from the top, but it's about the grassroots who have to make it happen and believe in it. And that's why the culture is so important from the people bottom up. So when you have a real commitment in the DNA and the culture of a company, it is easier to do that. Now you mentioned Think Planet. Think Planet we launched beginning of this year. That's a new initiative which is all about energy consumption, and it's all about energy reduction. So reducing energy consumption by 5% a year over the next 5 years, 25%. Stiff target, ambitious target. And that we want to make happen through our people.
Yes, and how do you propose to deliver it? 25% is a huge reduction. Is it in design or is it in sort of retrofitting the current sort of building stock you've got? Is it in completely changing the way that you operate the hotels? How do you deliver it?
Everything what you said and more. It's multifaceted. And the challenge is, as you said, we operate in 70 countries, so there's an enormous diversity already there. It starts really with educating our staff, and that came through in the previous presentations today also. It's all about raising awareness. If I as an individual am more aware what I can contribute to sustainability, I'm going to do something. So it starts with education, where we are very focused on educating our staff through videos, through posters, through quizzes, but also incentivizing them, the staff, to participate.
It suggests you're doing a lot of things wrong right now. If you can make these gains so quickly, it suggests that there's an awful lot of waste and inefficiency in your organization at the moment.
You're right. I wouldn't sit here and say we're doing it all right. We are doing a lot wrong today. And I think in the hotel industry in general, we are guilty of doing a lot wrong.
What are you really doing wrong right now?
But just look at buildings. Buildings are about 30% of the global energy consumption come of buildings. The hotel industry operates in buildings. Our buildings are not energy efficient. I wouldn't sit there and pretend.
Why not? I mean, you said it was written into your DNA from the very inception of the hotel group. And goodness knows, I know, because I've been doing this job for the last 6 years, chief executives and senior executives like yourself have been aware for an awful long time of the need to address energy efficiency and emissions reduction. So why are you saying that even today, so many of your buildings and your staff practices are just plain inefficient?
It's a complex business. We are a hotel management company, so we operate the hotels. We actually don't own the hotels. So we are reliant on the relationship that we have with our owners. And we actually need to also convince our owners in the various countries to invest with us, to believe in us. And that's a daunting process to educate the owners also, because it's not just us as a management company. We provide the brand, the management expertise, so we have to jointly convince our owners to invest in environmental sustainable building standards when the hotel starts out in the roots, being developed, following these standards, to the opening, to the refurbishment, to the ongoing cycle.
So that's a very interesting answer, Wolfgang, because you've pointed to a complex relationship between management, which you offer, and the basic site, the building itself. I mean, maybe you've taken on buildings, you've taken on hotels, which you shouldn't have taken on, which were owned by people who weren't interested in this agenda, or frankly were just so lacking in the quality that you needed to deliver efficiency that you should never have engaged with them in the first place.
If the world is as black and white as you paint it, no, I shouldn't. But the world isn't as black and white. It's business, and we have a business. We are a public limited company. So it's a balancing act.
No, but hang on. You have the right, do you not, to end management contracts and to drop certain hotels if they're not living up to the baseline standards that you require and expect.
And we do.
How many have you dropped?
We dropped about 20 hotels this year for various reasons, and we are very committed to doing business with ethical partners who commit to living the values and the standards that we have, the brand standards. I mean, we have been voted for 3 years in a row one of the most ethical companies in the world by Ethystat. I always get this wrong. Huh? Ethisphere, thank you. Inge is our Director of Responsible Business. She remembers these things 10 times better than me. But that's not important. What is important is the award.
You can't brief him throughout the interview.
She has done it before. But what I wanted to say is this award demonstrates that we mean serious and we are actually walking our talk. Are we doing this all the time 100% right? No, we are not. We have to become better.
How poor do you think the industry as a whole is right now when it comes to meeting these standards and making the efficiencies and improvements that you say your own company is engaged in? When you look around the industry as a whole, how worried should we be about the state of the global hotel sector when it comes to meeting these standards?
If I listen to these awards, which we had over the last 20 minutes, we must all be very encouraged what's happening.
Yeah, but so many of these awards went to wonderful smaller enterprises. You've become a massive global chain. And I just wonder whether, when you look around the world of the corporate hotel sector and the global sort of accommodation sector, whether you feel that there's the same buzz, the same commitment connected to these issues that we see on the smaller scale.
You know, a global company like us is a makeup of many small enterprises. We have 420 small enterprises headed by general managers. We are a big corporation, yes, but ultimately in the hotel business, the rubber hits the road at hotel level. It's at grassroots. It's the general manager and his team who makes it happen. These are the 420 small enterprises. They are committed. They commit to activities in the local community. They engage their staff, and they really contribute. So that is really how the hotel industry works. It's from CEO and executive level where the commitment the visible commitment has to come. But the initiative, the traction comes bottom up.
Now, I pride myself on not being a cynic, simply being a healthy skeptic. So I don't want to sound cynical in this question, but it seems to me when you parade your sustainability and environmental credentials, the focus is really on the efficiencies you can make in energy terms and in emissions reduction. And to me, that's, admirable, but it's also just basic business common sense. You would do that because it is going to improve your bottom line. In the end, you're helping yourself. You may be helping the planet too, but you're helping yourself because you're massively reducing your energy costs. But there are so many other ways one can look at your commitment to sustainability. And when I search through your company website and information, I don't find much information about, for example, your labor conditions in some of your emerging market hotels, the commitment you have to paying a decent living wage to all of the staff in some of the poorer countries you operate, the commitment you might make to ensuring that there is not just sort of base level hiring of local people, but management and senior management progression for people from emerging and developing countries. These more social sustainability commitments, I don't see much reference to. So where are they?
Okay, you're raising 2 points. Let me come to each of them. First of all, you said, well, energy consumption reduction is all about profits. Well, it's about planet and profits. It's both P's. And what's wrong with that? If you run a business and you can do it in a sustainable, responsible way and at the same time have an impact on your bottom line, nothing wrong with that. I think the contrary. Then you really run a business which is really value creating on all fronts. So that was the first point.
And that's why I began by saying I don't want to just play the cynic. Of course, it ticks both boxes, and both boxes need to be ticked. Nobody's going to run a business at a loss, at least not for very long. And obviously, if you can improve the bottom line by energy efficiency, great. But now address the second part of my question, which is, getting away from the data which says that I'm just looking at it now, that you're using water more efficiently, that the energy per guest ratio is improving, all of that stuff. Those are one set of statistics which matter, but another set I'm not seeing which relates to the social side of the business.
Hugely committed to that, and you wouldn't become a company with 420 hotels in 70 countries if you wouldn't have a track record in this. Africa, we are incredibly committed in the local community to engage at community level. Our general manager actively connected to the community. I mean, you mentioned the standards of employment. It starts with paying the right wage. It starts with educating our people. We have a global business school which goes on the road and, by the way, spends a lot of the time of the business school going into these countries, emerging markets, and educating people. We are very much committed to developing local talent because we as a global company, we cannot continue to go into these countries and pretend to know it all. It's all about developing the local nationals up to actually take responsibility.
So it all sounds impressive. What do you call then a good and fair wage in one of, I don't know if you have many hotels in Kenya, for example, but we've talked a bit about Kenya today. Do you have operations in Kenya? What do you're one of the most senior executives in the company, about to run the company next year. I'm hoping you know what is the wage of, your average say cleaning staff or bar staff worker in a Kenyan hotel of yours?
I'm afraid, Stephen, I don't know the minimum wage of 70 countries.
Well, you only pay minimum wage?
No, but it starts with minimum wage. I mean,
why?
Let me explain.
Because you're a very successful, profitable business expanding across the world. Why do you, it's interesting, you choose to answer that by saying, well, I don't know what the minimum wage rate is in Kenya. Surely your business shouldn't be thinking, well, what can we get away with? What's the least we can pay? You should be looking to add value and help people develop their skills, but also pay them surely a wage which reflects your profitability, not just the minimum wage in Kenya.
Great, I just answered your question. You asked me what the minimum wage is, I tried to answer it, and I don't know. How could I know the minimum wage in 70 countries? That's not the point. The point is we are paying a very competitive salary in all our countries. We are fully engaged to provide a journey on talent development from entry routes up to management. And obviously, we compensate people according to market condition, according to their talent. It's not about minimum. Minimum wage is the entry. And there's a lot of publicity about minimum wage. One interesting thing is about the tourism industry, which is, by the way, one of the biggest employers. One of 12 jobs globally is in the tourism sector. So it's an important employment industry. And it's entry-level positions where people can go in without any education and actually have an opportunity to grow in their careers, which in the hotel industry happens a great deal, where people without much education go in there, just have the right attitude and grow in this industry.
Are there any places in the world where your business, to get a foothold in an important new emerging market, have had to pay, some would say bribes, others might use the term sweeteners, to get into the marketplace?
We have a very clear policy. We don't do that. And we audit our hotels, we audit our development team. We're very rigorous on that, and we never do that.
And yet, you talked about your developments in Africa, in Russia as well. I know from my day job that these are countries and regions, with huge governance issues, where there is no doubt that many businesses, to get on, have to play a game which involves under-the-table payments and all sorts of other things. Are there certain parts of the world where governance is so poor, you feel it would be irresponsible to take your business?
Absolutely. Let me talk about one country where we have 30 hotels and where a lot of corruption is going on, as we all know, and that's Russia. In Russia, to do business, it is very difficult to get in. Now, we happen to be 20 years in Russia. We opened our first hotel in Moscow, the Slavanskaya, 20 years ago. We are present in this market and country since years. We have the relationships, we have the track record, we have the recognition. We don't need to pay bribes because people come to us. We have twice the pipeline of hotels in Russia than our next competitor. Sub-Saharan Africa, I just come back from Kenya, from the investment conference in Nairobi. We have twice the pipeline of hotels in Sub-Sahara. Why? Because we have the relationship with the governments, with ministers. They know how we operate. We have a track record. We don't need to do that.
When you look at Africa and your expansion plans in Africa, do you ever say to yourself, it might be very profitable to put a hotel in this particular place or offer a management contract to a hotel in this particular place, but you know what? I don't think the infrastructure's ready. I don't think it would necessarily improve the local environment, the local economic situation, just because of where that particular place is right now, and therefore you back away. I mean, I'm just wondering to what extent you do, before you undertake expansion and development in these marketplaces, you really run studies on what impact they'll have on the local community and the local environment.
To open one hotel, it takes 12 leads like you're describing now. So we are turning away 11.
Really?
That's the track record. Now, to answer your second part of your question, we just opened a hotel in Lagos. 3 years late. 3 years late. The owner drove us mad. We said, no, you're not ready. You're not ready from a safety perspective. The employee situation isn't sorted out yet. The staff housing wasn't ready yet. We were very committed to provide our staff a quality environment which allowed them to actually give a quality experience to our guests. 3 years late. Good example.
Very, very frustrating.
Hugely. But you know what? If you want to grow in the emerging markets, it's not like Europe. The emerging markets is a different game. You have to be ready for that. You have to be patient. You have to adapt. You have to understand the local environment. Each of these countries is different. I always argue with people when they talk about the African continent. It's 40 plus countries, right? I mean, it's not Africa as a stamp.
It's just it would be like talking about Europe as though Europe was homogenous and the issues were all the same.
And Africa is the same.
Yeah. Fiona already alluded to this, and I hope I'm right in saying that you are actually going to be the big cheese, the grand fromage very soon in Residor. You're becoming the CEO next year, am I right?
Yeah, as of January.
Okay. So here's the big strategic question. You want to grow, and you are growing, and the growth's very impressive. But do you believe, as CEOs have to consider all of these sustainability issues and the future of the planet, that you need to factor that into your growth strategy, and that growth for its own sake actually isn't the right approach, even for the most successful companies?
You need to balance growth. And you need to stay away from this temptation of growing too fast and all over the place. I think Residor is, and I'm very open about this, Residor has grown very fast over the last 10 years. We're actually very much now also taking a step a little bit back because we have reached a scale which is significant and is large enough. So we are becoming even more strategic and more selective. And in the past, have we made mistakes on this growth path, in this ambition to become big? Yeah, we have. We look back on that and we have to fix some problems. And that's part of doing business.
Well, that's interesting. So if you call them mistakes, I'm happy to echo it and call them mistakes too. The mistakes have been that at certain times you've gone too far too fast in certain regions, and that the quality hasn't been there. Yeah. And so then what do you do? How do you rectify that?
We just exited 7 hotels in France, made a press release on Friday. We had to get out of them. It was wrong. And I think you need to make business decisions, and you need to make business decisions which are clear in relation to your values, your ethical standards, your brand standards, which to us is critical, because when we talk about Radisson Blu being one of the largest hotel brand in the upper upscale, we need to protect it. That's an asset that we have, and we need to be clean about that. And we need to be rigid of what we brand as a Radisson Blu. And if the standards are no longer met, then the brand has to go down.
Do you, and I need you to be very frank about this, do you make more money, and I want to tie it very much to the themes of this morning, do you make more money out of your operations in the emerging world, and let's talk about Africa for argument's sake, for each particular location you've got in Africa, are they generating a better return on investment than the long-established hotels you have in the West, say France, where you don't sound particularly happy at the moment? I.e., are you making more money out of your new world, your developing world operations?
No, the emerging market is a long-term game. The emerging market you have to build up because it takes you much more effort and energy and resources to actually operate there. So it's an upfront investment into area costs, into the team who leads in these emerging countries the build-up process. So you have to invest first, and then long-term you actually reap the benefits. We have a business model in Central Europe which is partly also leases. Versus in the emerging markets, we only have management contracts. So there's a mix in the business model also. In the emerging markets, we operate only with partners, so we don't invest ourselves. So the opportunity also to make significant profits is lesser, and you need to have more scale.
But thinking of World Responsible Tourism Day and what it's all about, you, in the developing world then, are entirely reliant on the standards, the ethics, the commitments of your partners who actually have a bigger stake in the business than you do.
Dependent on it is a big word. What we do in our upfront negotiation before we actually sign a contract, we are very rigid in clearly outlining, contractually, legally binding, what the development partner has to deliver. And if they don't deliver, we walk away from it.
Except once you've signed the contract, you can't walk away.
No, but that's not true. You also can exit
you
contracts.
Break your contracts?
Well, they exit clause. They're very. We audit our hotels twice a year, so an independent company from a quality perspective. We audit all our hotels in the emerging markets for an independent audit firm twice a year. So we are very rigid in making sure that what we operate in these emerging markets is meeting our standards. And then these audit reports, they get tracked, they get followed up. There's a rigid measuring system, and we know when we run into problems very quickly, and we are reacting to it. And the ultimate step is to get out of the hotels.
Now, before we end, we shouldn't just consider this from the point of view of your bottom line and your management systems and everything else. I do want to have your perspective on the customer, the client, the user of your hotels. People who've watched me do these interviews before know I have several bees in my bonnet. One is about the absurdity of hotels in their ensuite bathrooms putting up little notices saying, ladies and gentlemen, you know, feel free to dump your towels on the floor every day, but appreciate that the world will be a better place if you put your towel back on the rail. You know, and sort of putting the onus on the visitor in a way that to me seems ludicrous. I mean, surely it's time for hotels to establish some basic practices which are just better for the planet. You know, I'm thinking about how often you change the sheets on the bed, how often you change the towels in a room, how many swimming pools you build, because goodness knows even the most enthusiastic swimmer doesn't need 3 different swimming pools to swim in your average hotel. Some hotels which have golf courses, why on earth do they have the golf courses and irrigate them, you know, in places where there's a shortage of water? All of these things. Hotels have to surely reconsider the offer they make to the customer, do they not?
Yeah, you're making a couple of broad brush statements now, which one has to be careful.
Well, I specialize in broad brush statements. But
obviously. We are very keen on engaging with the customer. We are very keen on actually, as part of Think Planet, we have done a lot of work of actually really engaging with the customer. And you would be surprised how much our guests actually appreciate in being involved in Think Planet. We have in a couple of our hotels, we offer a scheme where you can actually take a bike into town instead of taking a taxi. And customers love it. They really appreciate it. And yes, I mean, we have this...
You mean you offer the bike for free?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're right about this hypocritical initiative where we said, you know, here's your tent card and reuse the towel. But it's, you know, an environmental initiative is about million details as far as I'm concerned. It's million details where you can make a little touch point with the customer, a little touch point with your employee who makes a difference. And the accumulation of these initiatives adds up to something big. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to engage with the customer, we need to engage with our employees, and in this initiative, as it accumulates, we're going to make an impact.
When you look 10 years from now at what you, and goodness knows, you might still be the boss in 10 years, who knows, you look very youthful, so you probably will be. In 10 years from now, how different, you know, when it comes to these sustainability issues, how different will be the practices and operations of your company, do you believe, from the way they are now? Because you've admitted it isn't, obviously there are areas, there's a lot of room for improvement still, so just paint me a vision of what it will be like in 10 years.
In 10 years, I think the tourism industry as a whole will have really stopped only talking about environmental initiative, but actually really put it into the working life. It will become a natural for all of us. I think we have no other choice. Because when you look at, if we don't do anything as a tourism industry, our energy consumption, our emission will double, our water usage will multiply by 2.1%. The prospects, if we don't do anything, are horrible. So we as a company, we are totally committed to that. And as I said to you, it's in our DNA. By the way, what we have here on our pen it's called Yes, I Can. And that's our philosophy.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
It's lucky that Obama won the election. Or that
he stole it from us.
That would sound like a very redundant phrase if it was President Romney. But anyway, go on.
And we really want to make it happen. So in 10 years from now, I think we will have made a significant contribution to our planet. We'll have achieved our energy reduction targets and more, and we'll have really changed the way how we operate hotels from the very conception when we develop to the point of when we refurbish throughout. And I think that's our ambition, and we want to make it happen through our employees.
And it seems to me you better believe that your competitors, your rivals in the global hotel market are going to do the same thing, or there will, if they do not, and if wider society begins to see this part of the travel and tourism sector as problematic, then new regulation, new control might come in, which could hamper your freedoms. So you're reliant on the, you can't just win this battle on your own. You've got to get your colleagues in other big hotel groups, corporates, to play the same game.
WTO, IT, International Tourism Partnership, etc., play a key role in pulling us together and making sure we share best practices, make sure that we adapt our international standards and practices. There's a role to play from these bodies. As far as government is concerned, one needs to be careful because too much regulation is actually hindering. When it comes to energy and all that, we want to make sure, or we would want to, we're very active in lobbying for that governments actually help us through subsidies, of really make sure that we in the business world invest more and not make it more difficult for us. It's not about levies, it's about incentivize us to invest more to make an impact. There are great initiatives in the UK. There's a great initiative in France going on where governments say, if you invest, we give you a tax break. And that's what government has to do.
Doesn't surprise me that a corporate leader thinks that tax breaks are a better approach than more regulation. That's not the biggest surprise of the morning. But Wolfgang, I think we're probably out of time because I know everybody's got to get some lunch before this afternoon's events. I thank you so much for sitting in the hot seat. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much
indeed. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, real thanks to Wolfgang Neumann, and good luck with the Think Planet project, Wolfgang. Before we go, ladies and gentlemen, to get a quick lunch break, and at the BBC lunch, of course, let me just tell you that there are events this afternoon which are directly relevant to World Responsible Tourism Day. There is a debate on reducing emissions in the industry. That's between 3:30 and 5. In the South Gallery rooms 21 and 22, so I encourage you to go to that. But I also actually encourage you to attend the sessions that I'm chairing on the powerhouse economies. So frankly, I've just talked myself out of a few members of the audience, but the powerhouse economy sessions are in Platinum Suite 4, covering Brazil, China, India, Russia and South Africa, starting at 2:30. So you might want to ignore what I just said about other events. Those are obviously really important. So do come along if you can to my discussions on the BRICS. There's plenty going on. There's networking later on this afternoon as well, which we encourage you to come to. So please enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you very much for being here this morning. Thanks a lot. Wolfgang, thank you.